Tatiana. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you, Brandy?
Doing so good. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast so we can interview. I'm so excited to hear about your process behind this book and to dive more into this with you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk about it.
Of course. I'm so excited. Okay, I have so many questions for you, so let's get started. Okay, so why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and anything you want the listeners to know first before we dive into all the questions?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Tatiana Bonet, the author of Such Lovely Skin, a YA horror novel about a Twitch streamer who plays an evil video game. I grew up in San Diego, but I've been living in Iowa for the last 10 years. I got my MFA in creative writing at Iowa. I work as a group fitness coach, a personal trainer, and I play a lot of video games.
That's amazing. I love that. I know I found your TikTok recently and I saw all your weightlifting stuff and whatnot. I was like, oh my gosh, this girl is amazing. Not only does she write really cool books, but she's also so strong. So
Thank you.
That's really cool. Jack of all trades. That's amazing. Okay, well, I have quite a few questions for you and I can't wait to dive into this book. So let's go ahead and start with Such Lovely Skin mixes psychological horror with real life emotional struggles like guilt and grief. What inspired you to combine those elements and how did the idea for the story come about?
Yeah, so initially the story started with this evil video game idea. And I actually got that concept from I think it was 2006 or 2007 movie Stay Alive. Where like the teenagers or they're like in college, they play this evil video game and when they die in the game, they die for real. And I just knew like in my heart that I had to write a story like that one day. But I also was like grappling with this idea of like a terrible secret. And I wanted to mix these two ideas because to me, the scariest monsters are ones that like target something really personal. And if it's just like, I mean, that's what that movie's fun, but what's not interesting about it is that they're just kind of like, it could happen to anyone. And I wanted this demon to target Vivian specifically. And I knew that she was going to have to be dealing with something like guilt and grief. That way she's the perfect target for this monster, for this demon.
I see. I like that a lot because, yeah, you're right. In that movie, it is anybody. So I like the personalization with that. That's really cool. Okay, so the theme of gaming and streaming plays a central role in Viv's life. Why did you choose Twitch streaming and horror gaming as the backdrop for Viv's character and the story's supernatural elements?
Yeah, so, well, I'm a big gamer, and so it just felt like it would naturally be part of, like, the culture of Viv's life and, like, the book. And I also knew, kind of coming back to that idea of it being personal, that this character, my main character, was going to be like kind of image obsessed, like really care about what other people think about her. And so it just made sense that she's a Twitch streamer. I was also asking myself when I was like developing the story, like, what does she have to lose? And so she's just like a quiet gamer. It just wasn't as loud as if she has like a platform that's going to be destroyed. And so I just thought of it as a way to like raise the stakes. And this is a demon that's targeting her image, right? What other people think of her. So it's just sort of like the perfect storm if she's a Twitch star. And she's getting her life ruined. Yeah, I don't know if you saw Smile 2 yet, but it deals with like, okay, you have to see it. Everyone listening has to go see it. Like, watch the first one, watch the second one. But the premise is basically like, what if Miley Cyrus or like Ariana Grande were being haunted by a demon? Like, everyone would just think that they were like losing their shit and like doing drugs and alcohol. But you're like watching like a star collapse from a haunting like publicly. And so I didn't. Obviously, that movie wasn't out yet when I was making this, but I see how I want to like talk to whoever wrote that movie because I feel like we were dealing with similar ideas of like how can we make this haunting like destroy someone whose image is like their whole world and they're like in the public or like online so much. Yeah.
Very interesting. I like that a lot. Okay, well, I have to go check out that movie now after reading this. Oh my gosh, I like that a lot. That's really cool. Okay, can you tell us more about the development of the mimic? How did you conceptualize this demonic doppelganger and what does it symbolize in Viv's journey?
Yeah, so I guess I started with the idea of mimic because they're just a great enemy. Even like in gaming, like the mimic is like the most annoying creature to battle in like a role-playing game or like Magic the Gathering. It's like so frustrating when your own power is like stolen and used against you. So I just thought it'd be a great antagonist for a book. And then I watched the adaptation of The Outsider by Stephen King, the HBO adaptation. It's so good. And I just really loved how. So that's the story before I wrote it. It was just a demon, just like a guilt-eating demon. And it became a mimic as I started realizing that I wanted these deeper layers of like image and yeah. And then I watched The Outsider and I was like, oh yeah, the mimic is such a good antagonist. And so it did grow that way. And I don't want to like give too many spoilers,
Sure.
but it's, as you know, having read it, that it definitely like the doppelganger grows with Vivian and becomes more and more like her, until, you know, she has to have some self-realizations to like finally cleave herself from it. So that was all very intentional and like unique to what I could only do with a mimic.
Okay. And so when you watch that show, you're like, oh, pat on the back. I did a good job. I made a good choice.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. Oh my gosh. I'm so excited to hear what like the readers think about all of that. Viv is a complex character who is both a chronic liar and guilt-ridden older sister. How did you balance these aspects of her personality to keep readers sympathetic while showing her flaws?
Yeah, that's a tough one. But a good question. And then the question, I guess, is she sympathetic? That's what, now that it's been out for a little bit and the reviews have started flooding in, that's what I'm learning that people don't necessarily agree with. Yeah, I find her sympathetic, and I wrote her, I wanted her to be, and I think that was a challenge because I I wanted a protagonist who was actually flawed. So like one of the most frustrating things for me is when I read a book or watch a movie or whatever, and the protagonist is carrying this guilt. And it's like this big burden, this big secret that they have, and then they get to the reveal and it's something like totally not even memorable. It's like, oh, I missed that phone call that she made the night before she died, whatever.
Right.
And it's like, really, that was it? Like all that suspense for that? And so I wanted this to like actually be something horrible. And so I also wanted to make her like lovable, though. I think she's fun and funny and like really passionate about gaming. And whenever someone's passionate about something, I think that makes them, you know, immediately interesting. And so I didn't want, like, the guilt and the secret are such loud things in her life, but I didn't want them to be the only facet of her character. So like she has other things like her gaming, her Twitch. It's also part of why this whole question of like, how did I make her sympathetic? Is why I chose to make it YA, because I had experimented with the idea of making this story adult. And in fact, because it's so dark, it was hard to find a publisher for it. And it was looking like I was possibly going to have to rewrite it to adults, which I didn't want to do, because I wanted the accident with Viv's little sister to have just happened. And if she's adult, you know, and she did this horrible secret a couple months ago, well, it's like straight to prison. There's like no room for sympathy if she's like 25. The other way I could have done it that I was working with was like, well, maybe Vivian's 25 and this horrible thing she did was like 10 years ago. But then I just couldn't figure out like, why does it matter now?
Yeah.
And the wound is just like not as fresh. And I just think there's like less sympathy for an adult narrator who's like lies and like does things out of like pure insecurity. I think like it can work, but just like with the specific story elements that I was dealing with, it just felt like there was more room for forgiveness and more room for growth if she's still a teenager.
Absolutely. I like that a lot. And I like that she actually does have a traumatic thing too. Because I mean, have you read the Quarter Threads Roses books?
No, I haven't.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, on the last book, they're all sharing their traumas and one of them shares hers and you're like, that's it? That's what we're mad about? Okay.
Yeah, I hate that feeling.
Right. And I just recently read that one and so I appreciate that from...
Right. Like, I want to know if you're going to share a secret, it has to be like vile.
Yeah. Don't give me this stuff. I mean, mind you, she did have some trauma, but compared to the other girls that were sharing her trauma, I'm like, ooh... That's not a good look. All right. Okay, so let's talk about Ash. Ash is a
Okay.
very interesting character. So Ash, who Viv once bullied, becomes one of her strongest allies. What made you decide to include that kind of redemption arc for Ash as his relationship with Viv?
Yeah. Um, okay, so that's actually something my editor encouraged me to put in the book. So that wasn't in there when I first went on submission. They were just like old acquaintances and like had, I don't know, like bumped into each other in school and she just like kind of thought he was weird, but she wasn't an antagonist to him. Um, and my editor was like, I think it just like really raised the tension and like the high school drama if you
Yeah.
made Viv his bully. And then my editor said this really interesting thing that I still think about a lot. She said that other than Vivian's one really big, horrible secret, she's pretty flawless. And that she thought that Vivian should have more flaws.
Oh,
And I was
interesting.
like, okay, sure, that's a risk
Yeah.
because her one secret is so horrible. Like, it's one horrible secret not enough. But I understood what she was saying and I went with it and I did end up liking it because I do think it makes Vivian more dynamic and it already fits her character. Like, if she has this one horrible secret, she probably has other little horrible secrets. And it just makes sense that she would have this habit. And so, yeah, it didn't make sense that she would be like flawless aside from this one other thing. There'd be like a string of little bad things following her. And then I'm always a fan of like characters withholding information. Okay, in a way that's done well. I know that can be super frustrating when characters like know something and you're like, just talk to each other, damn it. Um, but I think when one character knows something about another that the other characters don't, that just like is ripe for tension. And yeah, so I just thought I agreed. It was my editor. She definitely massaged the Ash and Vivian relationship a lot, but I ended up going along with it. I do like it.
Oh, well, that's really cool to hear the backstory with that because I
Yeah.
really enjoyed that character. I enjoyed hearing that different dynamic and the character arc of that was just really cool. So I think they made a good call, and I think you wrote it
Mhm.
very well. So that's awesome. Okay, so this book explores both real life horrors, like loss and guilt, and supernatural horror. How do you see those two types of horror working together in such lovely skin?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think supernatural horror is scary because of real life horror. And I mean, this book probably could work if you just like carved out the demon. I mean, it'd probably be boring. I don't know what would really happen, but like the story is still there. And so I just think of the supernatural element as like a way to heighten what's happening in real life. Yeah, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that. Okay, so speaking of the horror still, how did you go about creating the atmosphere of dread and horror in the book? Did you have any specific influences or inspirations in mind, like certain horror films or novels? I know we kind of touched on one already, or a couple, but
Yeah. So another one, The Ring was a huge source of inspiration. Like my elevator pitch is this is The Ring, but with a video game instead of a tape. There's actually like a couple scenes that are like direct nods to The Ring, the 2002 remake. And then I was just thinking a lot about I watch a ton of horror movies. It's definitely my favorite genre to watch. And it is hard to create that atmosphere and dread in a first person story. And that's because like well, when you watch the movie, um, you're seeing the characters from the outside. So if there's a demon creeping in the corner, we see it on camera. The characters don't know it. And that's like what creates that attention, right? Because we know that it's there. They don't know that it's there. It's getting closer, closer, closer. We're like, oh God, when's she gonna see it? There's that like great kind of it's a little cliche, but I thought the first Omen did it well, where like the camera pans across like a coat and a hat hanging on the wall. And like it looks like a figure and then like maybe some eyes flash. Anyway, all of this is to say is that like I wanted that feeling in this book, but I'm like up against a challenge of like I'm stuck in Vivian's point of view. It's very narrow. And so to accomplish that, I was just thinking about like, you know, if there's a demon in the corner behind me, like what senses like is my body gonna feel? Like the chill, like the creak. And so I just really leaned into those like little ambience, like the sounds, like the lighting changes. One of the scenes that like I really leaned into that when she's like at her desk and she like hears a voice from the computer, and then like her hair, like something like touches her hair. So basically just like imagining what this jump scare would look like in the movie version and then writing it through the lens of this limited character.
I love that. That's really interesting to hear that perspective, because that would be tricky to write that down, because in the movie you do have the perspective of the camera as well. And so wow, that I'm sure that was kind of like a brain mess up a little bit. You're like, okay, so
yeah, and it is hard. And it's movies, there's like a trade-off. Movies can do so much. They have like sound, like horror movie music is so scary and can like immediately just like make a scene creepy. And so like I wish there was a way, maybe one day we'll reach a point where you can like insert the audio chip that like plays the moody music into your brain as you read.
Yes. Have you seen those graphic or have you listened to any of those graphic audiobooks? It's like a movie in your ears type of a thing.
Okay, no. But I did listen to Paul Tremblay's horror movie audiobook, and that was so good because they like really did like the little sound effects and like yeah. They knew it. Yes, I think they did probably what you're talking about there.
Okay, yeah. The graphic audio, they like will have a full cast, and so they'll have different voices for the different characters and the noises and stuff. It's really cool. So that would be super awesome to listen to this book with that.
yeah. Well, my audiobook is very good. It did not get that kind of production. With it? Yes. There's an audiobook. It was produced by Penguin Random House. The narrators, we have one narrator. Her name is Chandler Gregoire, I think is her last name. She's fantastic. You should definitely go listen to the sample because she has like she does it so well.
Can you find that just like on Audible or like anything?
Yeah, it's on Audible, Spotify, Libro, anywhere that you get audiobooks.
Okay, well, good to know. That's great. I'm gonna have to go listen to that. Okay, so do you have a favorite scene or moment in Such Lovely Skin that you found particularly challenging or rewarding to write?
Yeah, favorite scene, probably the video game scenes. So there aren't a whole lot of gaming scenes where she's like actively gaming. So I do want listeners who are like, and I have had this come up where people are like, oh, but I'm not a gamer. Like, I don't think I'd like this book. There's not too much gaming.
Yeah, you don't have to be a gamer to understand it.
Yeah. Which the flip side, I've also heard like, well, I thought this was a gaming book.
Never please anybody.
So I'm sorry. It has a gaming premise. There is a little bit of gaming. So if you're a non-gamer, you can definitely get into it. So when I say like the gaming scenes, there's, I think, two main gaming scenes where Vivian's like actually playing the video game. Those were super fun to write and like really rewarding. And actually, like when I was going into this, what I was most excited to write about, like going into the concept of the story. And I remember my best friend, and we spend like more time in video games together than in real life. I was like texting him, like sending him like little snippets of the video game scenes as I was writing them, and like asking him like, do you think this is creepy? Like, what can we do to make it creepier? So that was just so fun. And so, like, I don't want to give any spoilers, but there's this scene, where Vivian's playing the evil video game, and then, things from real life are merging with the game. And, like, I just found that really fun and creepy to write.
Oh, that's so cool. I love that. And that's awesome that you had a friend that you can, kind of bounce ideas off with and whatnot. That's really cool. Okay, so let's see here. What was the most challenging part of writing this book, especially when it came to balancing the horror and psychological elements with Viv's emotional arc?
Yeah, probably the whole reveal with Riley and like her parents' reaction. Yes. And just like the logistics of that too. Like how Riley died, how Vivian kept it a secret, how like that went down like legally. I'm speaking vaguely because I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but like just the logistics of all of that. And then her parents' reaction, that was hard, and took like so many rewrites, so many attempts, so many of me just like begging my reader friends like, can you read this scene for the 15th time and tell me if you still see any plot holes or like if it makes sense. And so, and then we have to like go out of that super heavy thing, like, back to the demon. Yeah, it was hard. And so that's why I'm just like so thankful for like my writing group and my agent and my editor, because they're the ones who are like willing to, read this 20 times and like help me smooth out the kinks, and I really need to like never log into Goodreads again, because like I spent so much time and like work on this just to like go on and like see all these 1-star reviews that are like terrible ending. Just completely unbelievable. There's not that many like that, but just even seeing like one or two like that, I'm like, oh god.
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean. In fact, last night I decided to hurt my own feelings and read some comments on from the podcast stuff. And most of them aren't negative, but there was one who specifically said, "Get her. She needs to get a man."
Oh my god!
I was like, well, I have
People
one.
are so mean, and I know that those are like reviewer spaces. Yeah, like the creator should probably just not go into the comments. Those are for like the viewers. But
right.
like, we're humans too. We're gonna take a peek.
Be nice. Don't be trolls behind your keyboard, people.
Oh yeah. But it's okay. Like, honestly, I'm just grateful. Even if people don't like it and they think I like totally botched the ending, I'm just glad that you read it, and
Absolutely.
Thank you for reading.
Oh my goodness. Well, hopefully you don't go on to Goodreads too much more and hurt your feelings, because it is a lovely book. Well,
I'm not gonna. I'm not. Right. Only for the good ones.
Yes. Just click on the 5-star ones and read those.
Yes.
Okay, let's see here. Okay, I had a question about if you were personally connected to the gaming culture and how did that influence Viv's portrayal?
Yeah. I am a big gamer. So I've been playing a lot of Call of Duty recently, like Warzone, which is funny because when I wrote this book, I wasn't playing. And in fact, I kind of like looked down on Call of Duty because I was like the snobby highbrow gamer. Sure. I had like good taste in games. And then my boyfriend roped me into playing it. And I was like, oh, okay, wait, this is actually really fun. And I understand why people play this. And so I play a lot of that. I'm actually playing The Sims 4 again right now. Of course, I've played like all the Sims games, but they just had like a new like romance expansion come out. So I'm playing The Sims 4. I play Magic the Gathering. I play the Fallout games.
Sure, yeah.
Basically, if there's like a nod to it in the game, yes, I have played it.
Okay. Do you have I'm not a huge gamer, so I don't think I recognize the nods, but do you have like different nods to different games?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's like like a Dark Souls nod, Baldur's Gate 3, Skyrim. This was something like a point that came up to in like when I do interviews, and also like when I was editing, that I got asked like, are you worried about the book being dated with too many gaming pop culture references, or just like even pop culture? There's also like anime references, and yeah, that was something that I did consider heavily when I was revising, and I did try to cut some of it out, and it just didn't read right, because Vivian's a Twitch streamer, and like this social media girl, this like anime girl, gaming girl, she's gonna like talk and live in this like gaming and anime culture. If I carve that out for the sake of like making the book timeless, it just didn't read as authentic, or like it just felt off. And then I just thought about it more, and I was like, so what if it's dated? I personally like it when I pick up a book from 2005 and it reads like it came out in 2005.
And you hear all like the pop culture references of that time or whatnot. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I don't think it needs to feel timeless.
No.
And technology is like always changing and evolving. Yeah. Like, it would be so hard anyway, even if I carved out the pop culture references. Who knows how we'll be sending text messages in 10 years from now.
True. That is so true.
Yeah.
Well, that's very interesting. My only point of reference on gaming is playing Mario Kart with my kids. So so I guess I didn't catch all of those, but that's really cool. So I'm excited to hear. My husband does a lot of gaming though, so I need to have him read it and see if he catches those.
Yeah.
Okay, so Such Lovely Skin touches on the darker sides of social media and streaming culture. What messages or reflection on modern internet culture did you hope to convey through Viv's experiences?
Yeah, I did want to convey that it can be a good place for like expression and like building friendships and like connecting with people. I mean, like Ash and Vivian haven't even been like that close in person, but they like there's a scene where they play the video game together and kind of bond. Um and like I make friends, and like some of my best friendships are like made and then like maintained through gaming, because I did not want it to have a negative connotation. Um, I really do like the show Black Mirror, if I can go on a tangent, but sometimes it feels like a little like anti-tech. Um, and I am pro tech, pro internet, pro gaming. But I mean, like, I think it's also important to not like lose yourself in it, to like not make it your whole personality, and to, yes, like touch grass, see sunlight. I think there's a little bit about Vivian like forgetting to like eat and stuff because she's so deep in gaming, and I think that like that can happen. And so like, yes, like absolutely pro gaming, pro the community. It's like such a great community, the gaming world. And so yeah.
Okay, I like that. I like that mindset shift, because in Black Mirror, you're right, it is anti-tech a lot, and you see that often out there. And so I think that's pretty cool, because you can show that there are a lot of positives that come from this stuff. It's not just all negative, that what a lot of people like to say. um, okay, and speaking of like that type of thing, the book deals with intense emotions and trauma. What do you hope young readers, especially those dealing with their own struggles, take away from Viv's stories?
Yeah. Ultimately, I wanted this to be a story about self-forgiveness. Like, if I had to boil it down to like one aboutness, one meaning. And so yeah, basically self-forgiveness, and like a life kind of goes on kind of thing, and like, you can rebuild, you can be better. You're not defined by your past. I'm like just saying, I'm just like rambling cliches at this point, but like when you boil down a story, it's like what it really is about, it's typically a bunch of cliches. um yeah, so that's basically what I wanted to get across. And like I hated being told this when I was a teen, but the whole like, this moment in your life will pass, like you will get older, it will get better. Like I didn't want to hear that at all.
No.
But
But it's true.
it's true. It is true.
Yeah.
And I think that is like, a subtext in the book that, life, it will get better. It seems like it's not. Like, wow.
I think that's so important too, especially with mental health these days and whatnot, and just making sure that like, you can realize that you can move on from it.
They do.
Okay, so let's talk about like your, now that we've talked a bit about the book, let's talk about you as a writer. So can you share a bit about your journey as a writer? What led you to write young adult fiction? How has your own life influenced your work?
Yeah, so I actually moved to Iowa to write, because I Googled what's the best writing school when I was graduating high school and was looking for colleges. And Iowa and the Iowa Writers Workshop came up, and all the famous writers that they have here in Iowa City. And so I decided to go to undergrad here, because even as undergrad, you get to like study from all those big name authors that are part of the faculty. And so I actually started out writing memoir. So I have sort of like my own tumultuous childhood that I write about. I write like dark comedy, memoir, personal essays. So that's what I started really writing in undergrad. And because I was already writing from, when I was a kid, when I was a teen, I was like writing in that voice. Like the themes and what was happening was more adult, but I did have like the young voice sort of down. And then when I started taking fiction classes and writing more short stories, I just gravitated naturally toward creepy.
Okay.
And so I just, it just like all came together for me that, maybe I should give young adult horror a try, because I'm like already working with these two things. And so, yeah, I got into grad school. I got into the nonfiction writing program at Iowa, which is crazy to me still, and like I'm so grateful. Like dream program, like
Absolutely.
impossibly selective. Yeah. As I did write memoir for like my classes, but like on the side I was working on my horror fiction. And I think I specifically wanted to write YA horror fiction because I wanted to have fun. I wanted to write a fun book. I know that this book has been described as unserious, and some parts of it are. I would say, like, I think ultimately it is serious, but yeah, I don't take myself too seriously when I write. And I wanted to have, and it's the same way when I write or anything really. I do have a lot of fun. I don't take myself too seriously, and I did want to like fully commit to that vibe with writing a book. But at the same time, it does deal with heavy themes, which was a challenge of writing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think that's how I landed on YA horror.
I love it. As a dark humor person myself, I appreciated those little bits of humor and whatnot in there.
Right, thank you.
Okay, what advice would you give to aspiring authors, especially those looking to write in the horror genre for young adults?
Mm-hmm. I mean, like, all the generic advice, like, read what's coming out, watch what's coming out. I think especially in young adult, there's, like, more room for, like, other forms of media to inspire, so, like, movies, games, anime. Like, what are the teens consuming? And I think that's been, like, a big challenge and something that I'm hearing a lot is, like, kids are just, like, on TikTok nowadays. They're, like, not reading Goosebumps and stuff like they used to be when I was in middle school. And so, like, how can we grab young readers with writing? And that's something that I set out to do when I wrote Such Lovely Skin, because I was a big reader in middle school, and then in high school, I got a cell phone, I got an Xbox, and like books were boring all of a sudden. And so that's something that I was thinking about when I wrote Such Lovely Skin, and like, how can I grab that reluctant reader right away, and that like easily distracted reader right away.
Right, because the attention spans are so much shorter now than a while ago.
Yeah. And so, just thinking in terms of keeping a young reader's attention, and then find a writing group. I would not exist without my writing group. And that's pretty easy to do, like, with the internet. You have Facebook groups, you have Reddit. And so, yes, definitely, like, find your community.
Find your village. Mm-hmm. I like it. That's great advice. Okay, I have just a few more questions, just a couple more, and then we're all done. If Such Lovely Skin were to be adapted into a film or series, what kind of aesthetic would you envision for it? And do you have anyone in mind that you would cast for Viv and Ash, like a fan cast?
Yeah. Okay, so I would want like an A20, like an edgy A24 vibe, but also like some sort of like nostalgic, like 2000s.
Ooh.
I don't like, I know that it follows to place in some like unknown time and like alternate universe where like the time didn't really make sense, but like just the way that it had that sort of like classic nostalgic feel, but I'd want it to like be like a nod to like 2000s movies.
I love that.
Yeah, and then I'm imagining like a lot of like neon like the movie Cam that was on Netflix.
I can see that one.
Okay, it was really good. It's like about a cam girl who has a doppelganger who's streaming like her. It was also a big source of inspiration for this book.
Okay.
And then as far as cast goes, I don't really know that many young actors. I asked my friend this question, and he said Aubrey Anderson Emmons, and I looked her up from Modern Family. She's really cute. She's like 17 now.
Yes.
And yeah, she's a mixed race. She would make a really good Viv. And then as far as guys, like, if you watch Mayor of Easttown, the like goth, he's not goth, but he's like the gloomy teen boy. He would make a good Ash, I think.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. That's really cool. Okay, and then and I just had a question because I love the art, the cover art for this book. So tell us a little bit of how that came to be and anything you can about that, because I am very fascinated with it. I love it.
That's all my publisher. The artist's name is Tess Hamilton. I'll make sure I like send you her Instagram so you can like link it when you post this, because she is fantastic. She does like creepy like face portraits. And so my publisher sent me her portfolio and we're like, we're thinking she could do something for this. And I was like, oh yes, I love it. Like, she's so creepy.
Yes, she is.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. And so like, we went back and forth on, like, she sent me a couple of mock-ups and I was like, I want creepy white dead eyes. And then like we went back and forth on like making sure that there was like a controller. We went like, do we want keyboard because she's a computer gamer, or do we want controller? And like the consensus ended up being controller is gonna convey gaming,
Yes. Yeah.
just like to the main audience better. And then also like plenty of gamers. Vivian, I'm sure, yeah, she does plugs in a controller to game. So yeah, it makes sense. But yeah, that was it. The cover was a really smooth process. We didn't have to do like a ton of back and forth because Tess Hamilton just nailed it.
That's so cool. Yes, please send us her handle for that because I would love to look into that. Because when I saw the cover, I was like, "Oh, this is gonna be good. This is gonna be good." Well, that's amazing. Well, do you have anything else that you would like our listeners to know or anything like that? Yeah, where can they find your books and all that?
Yeah. It's pretty much everywhere. If it's not in the store can get it, but it's at most Barnes and Nobles. I've found at least one copy. They can get it from Amazon, from their local bookstore. If you want me to sign a copy, if you order from Prairie Lights Bookstore in Iowa City, if you order online, I've signed all those copies. And then if you want me to address it to you, if you put your name in the comments, you can get a personalized signed copy from me.
How cool. That's amazing. Yeah. Very cool. Okay, and then the audiobook, they could be found, like you said, on Audible and all those places too.
Yeah. Audiobooks everywhere. Yeah.
Great. Okay. Well, I hope everybody goes and grabs a copy or a personalized copy. I think I might do that. And we're just so grateful that you came on here to talk about this book. And I so appreciate you. And thank you for coming to talk to us.
Yeah, thank you so much, Brandy. This was so fun. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for sharing your process and all the things. And we are just so grateful. So everybody go get her book at Barnes & Noble or go get a personalized copy and listen to her audiobook too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, Tatiana.
Bye.
Don't forget to find us on social media for more quick and engaging book reviews and recommendations. Until next time, happy reading, stay curious, and keep exploring the fantastical and futuristic. And may your TBR pile never stop growing.